some fan fictions are so bad they ascend into the realm of FABfictions, which is why we created the Hall of FABfictions. Today's episode, Ne'er-Do-Wells of the Night Watch by Sloopity Doopity. Chapter 2, Shawshank Redemption, combined with Chapter 3. Mike woke up, apparently being the last to do so because Jeremy was awake next to him. Scott was trying to break down a door with Fritz or whatever his name was, and Vincent was in a corner. After examining their surroundings, they established they were in a barn, left with some apples, and they have been captured by flying wizard horses in Horseland. It's not the weirdest thing I've ever seen, Scott said, looking over to Vincent, who just did his trademark smile. I'm messing up more than an intern. Rude. Jeremy fumbled around with a flashlight, and eventually every just sat down up against a wall in a line. Sweet Jesus. Fritz bit into an apple. The flavors exploded in his mouth as his taste buds each had an individual orgasm. The apples are so good, he said, as if eating the apples would save their lives. He handed one to everyone, and they sat in silence, eating apples. Skylance eating apples. Did anybody notice end escape route? Mike asked, tired of sitting on hay already. The lock on the window is almost broken. If we had some sort of large object, we could break it. If we has some sort of large object, we can break it. I'm sorry, an intern keeps pointing out my mistakes. My apologies, everyone. Everybody looked at Fritz. You guys are assholes. And so is this intern.
The pony sat at the table outside of the barn. The princess had told them the guards had noticed an unmarked building inside the city and searched it for any owners or employees. In their minimal search of the building, they found employee files for 4 staff members, joke of which were ponies. Tracking them using an elaborate spell, they were located around Ponyville and sent to acquire them. The princess didn't want to take any chances and made sure they had to be locked in the barn and left with some food. Logic. What even are they? Rarity asked Twilight, who was madly flipping through a book. Their outfits are nice, except the purple one. Rarity shivered at the thought of the purple uniform Vincent wore. Not sure. They appear to be humans, Twilight said, sounding a bit unsure of herself. Aren't those extinct? Fluttershy asked, being the animal whisperer and best friend she is. That's the thing. Aren't any more of those are humans, Twilight said. We should probably do a double check of the barn, Twilight said, closing her book and receiving a huff from Applejack. She assured Twilight the barn was safe as the Canterlot vault, but Twilight had to make sure. The mares circled the barn until they heard a countdown from inside. Above them was a window on the side of the barn. 3. The pony stepped back. That doesn't sound good, Fluttershy said. 2. The pony stepped even further back. 1. They all yelled from inside louder than ever. The window smashed open and someone flew out like a sack of potatoes. Halls! Fritz hit the ground and didn't get up. He wasn't in pain. Well, he was, but he just didn't want to get up. Everyone else climbed out of the window and jumped onto the dirt a few feet away from the ponies. Mike helped Fritz up, and they got in a line, put on the angriest faces and posed as possible, and waited for the ponies to make a move. Mike cracked his knuckles. Jeremy got his flashlight in a whacking position. Fritz grabbed some apples and readied his arm. Scott took the phone off his head and held it like a sword. Vincent drew a knife. Then Chris walked up.
Oh, why?
What's going on here? He asked. Chris, shut up and help us beat up horse things, Mike said, pulling Chris into line. Okay. Chris got his mop in the light sabre position. The ponies gulped, but nevertheless were ready for a fight. Twilight stood across from Scott and readied her magic. Applejack stood across from Mike and the reader. What? Applejack stood across from Mike and Reader, her hind legs for bucking. Pinky stood across from Fritz and aimed a cannon of confetti at his face. Fluttershy stood across from Jeremy and they waved to each other. Rarity stood across from Vincent and readied a barrage of needles. Vincent immediately paled at the sight. Rainbow Dash stood across from Chris and readied for an air assault. They readied their weapons and waited for a move, anything for a reason to attack. And then AJ pawed the ground. Everybody took this as a threat and collided with each other.
Mike and AJ were rolling around just a ball, sucking in anything around them for just the point of beating the crap out of one another. Chris was swinging his mop with an amazing weapon, by the way, blocking every kick Rainbow sent at him, shocking and making Rainbow more determined. Pinky aimed her part cannon at Fritz, who had no idea it shot confetti. "Oh, Jesus!" he yelled, tossing an apple at Pinky with so much force it launched her back into the orchard. Fritz looked down at his arm. "Too bad, I don't play baseball." Rarity continued poking Vincent with needles. He was curled up on the ground, screaming in fear. Strong traits for a murderer. Scott was starting Twilight, who would occasionally fire a blot of magic back at him. And through it all, Fluttershy and Jeremy were sitting down, hugging without even knowing.
Eventually, everyone ended up sitting at different picnic tables, eating apples again, drinking apple juice and bleeding. What? Mike took off his hat, and everyone gasped. What? You looked like everyone, what? It looked like everyone was looking over him. What? He demanded, looking at everyone. Mike, there's blood coming out of your stitches, Jeremy said. Mike wiped off the frontal part of his head, smearing a lot of blood on his sleeve. It didn't matter. His uniform was already caked in dirt. "Oh, boy," he said, going back to eating an apple. Fluttershy hopped off the table where the ponies were seated and walked over to Mike. She was the only one who seemed to think that they weren't the bad guys, and for a good reason. They got locked in a barn. Excuse me, Fluttershy tried to remember what his name was. Mike? He looked over at her. "Yeah?" he said, seemingly calm. "Why do you have stitches?" "Why do all the guards lost?" Trying to gesture to get he to stop. "My best friend murdered me when I was a little kid," he said with no emotion and went back to eating his apple. Fluttershy was extremely saddened by the fact that someone's best friend tried to kill them. Unfortunately, none of the other ponies heard him, so Fluttershy would probably have to tell him. She went back down. "What about his stitches, Fluttershy? Why does he have them?" Rainbow immediately asked when she sat down. All of the ponies were eager to hear Mike's amazing tale of the bite of 87. "His best friend killed him when he was just a child," she said, making every pony confused. "Wait, if he got murdered, why is he alive right now?" "I don't know." Twilight went over to Mike and to ask him. "Hey, how are you alive if you got killed?" she said in the most in-your-face tone. "Because the soul of a little girl he murdered," he pointed to Vincent, "possessed me and kept me alive. I'm like her dad."
Fuck this shit, I'm out. Alright then. I don't know what the fuck just happened, but I don't really care. I'ma get the fuck up out of here. Fuck this shit, I'm out.
She said, scaring Twilight and making her almost cry at the thought.
I don't understand.
She went back to the table and told every pony. Mike felt around his pockets. Still, he felt a soft lump in his right pocket. Pulling out his toque and putting it over his head to cover the stitches without wearing the hat. "What are we waiting for again?" "The princess!" Twilight held back.
Earlier, a letter popped in Princess Celestia's face, and she caught it with her magic. Unraveling it, she was furious at the words on it. "Hey, Princess, no time for formalities. Formalities. Send help. The employees are human and they escaped, and they're standing with weapons in front of us. Help."
Wrong use of there.
Right. End of a hyphen. Anyways. "Assemble a chariot and a squad of elites," she said, closing her eyes and dropping the letter. "May I ask why?" a servant asked. The princess opened her eyes with a newfound Agnes, screw it. At the thought these people could hurt her student. Interns everywhere. We're going to Ponyville.
And Detector 2/3 because they're combined, yeah.
What the fuck is going on?